Mr. Markovich, good morning.
Good morning. My mic on? Yeah.
Yep, you're good. Nice background you have there.
Yeah. I'd like to be up there right now.
Oh yes, the Marin Headlands are amazing.
It's a nice day.
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful day. And then there's model railroading.
Yeah.
I I was just showing Di- Ken the ruins of a destroyed gear in a Atlas O scale
Oh, yeah.
gearbox, where I found out to my dismay that Labelle lubricants under that sort of loading turn into cutting fluid rather than lubrication.
Yeah.
It just destroyed the gear. Uh-oh, Bob's here. Watch out.
Ah,
And
yeah.
Earl,
Good morning.
Morning, Bob. Job search going okay?
Yeah, I'm in reference checks.
Oh, okay. Well, don't tell them you know us.
yeah, that would kill it.
That would kill it right there. Mr. Rosenbauer, good morning. Earl Gerbovan,
Good
hello and
morning.
welcome.
Good morning.
Earl, still looking forward to, as your schedule allows, for you and your lady to come over here.
It is on the schedule. I'm trying desperately to get caught up from being gone for 2 weeks and
Yeah. When you're
making
caught
the
up, when the
progress.
dust settles, when you catch your breath, that will work fine. There's Mr. Connery. Good morning. Um, our fearless leader is doing some of the California. They have a meeting or work session for the California Central Group, so that leaves me putatively in charge. Um, I know, Frank, often you have to scurry early. So,
Yeah.
what I'd like to do here is hand the gavel to you to convey any division, region, national business that you'd like to share with us. And then we'll switch gears to general purpose model railroading arm waving.
Well, there's just a few things, couple things.
Yes, sir.
First of all, they've asked each of us, the region presidents, to see if anybody in the region is interested in learning Canva for publicity. It's a program they use for publicity.
Okay.
I already took a training class when I was working in it.
Hmm.
That was like 7 years ago,
Oh, geez.
and I never used it because I was retiring.
Right.
So I'm sure the program's changed. So if anybody's interested, let me know. Um, so that's the
Spell
first. The second thing, yeah, go ahead.
spell the name.
CANVA.
CANVA. Thank you.
Then the national, they have this program with Grouper or Groupon or
Yep.
Group something, uh, and Grouper, that's what it is. Uh, I checked for me, Kaiser isn't one of the hospitals, the Medicare Advantage that uses that. So it doesn't affect me, and I'm a life member, but I wanted to see for other people that are in Kaiser. But if you check, they will pay your total dues every year if your Medicare Advantage plan covers it.
Hmm.
And so we need to make that known to everybody. So those are the two things from the national.
All
Then
right.
there also, I got an email from the convention committee for next year's, and it's really Detroit. It's a suburb of Detroit. I guess they don't want to tell people the convention's in Detroit for some obvious reasons, I think. But they're looking for clinicians. I won't be going there. But so those are the things from the national. Locally, I'm going to call a meeting of all the directors, officers in early January to just have an open BS meeting to talk about the future. I can't run again or won't be running for president. So Chip is, so they need to have somebody also sign up and run for VP. or for president to go against Chip. That would be okay too.
Keep him on his toes.
Yeah. So that's what I have. The convention in coming up looks pretty good. Want to encourage you, if you want to do the Crest run on Friday, the Thursday's sold out. Friday's a little over half sold out. The other thing, the hotel rooms are filling up rather rapidly. So I encourage anybody who intends on going to the convention to sign up if they want, especially if they want to go on the Cresta tour. One of the other tours, I forget which one, is also just about full. And if you're going to go and stay at the hotel, you probably need to make reservations fairly soon. I know the hotel well. I've stayed there a couple dozen times because one of my sons went to Cal Poly, and it was the one place we liked. It's a nice hotel. It's not new, but it's fairly nice. And you get the breakfast, and the rates are pretty reasonable. They're cheaper than when I usually went there to visit my son. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay, so local stuff going on here in the Bay Area. We have an auction coming up in December. We'll be looking for volunteers. I'll be volunteering and be part of the weathering clinic or weathering work session, I think is what it is. I'm going to be bringing all my chocks and a whole slew of truck trailers that I can do. Is it Tom Sawyer that convinced the other boys that they could have fun whitewashing the fence? So I'm going to bring a whole boatload of trailers that are shiny as toys. I'm going to dull coat them and bring them in, and we'll have some fun weathering them. That's one thing that'll be going on.
Hey, David.
We will. Yes, sir.
David, I have from Howard Lloyd's layout a whole section of plate truss bridges.
Ah,
So if those are more better for your weathering clinic than truck trailers, those are kind of earmarked for like a weathering clinic. And
good.
if you'd rather get those, I can get those to you.
Oh, please, more the merrier, because different structures can take you can have different looks. There's not perhaps as heavy a rust on aluminum truck trailers as there are in steel
Yeah,
bridge things. So yes, please feel
the
free
steel
to bring
plates would be
those.
good for you. I am going to be out of town, so I will arrange to get the parts, up there to you somehow.
Very well. Now we have also locally in beautiful Pleasanton, I believe it's December 14, 15. We have the Great American Train Show, I believe.
David, before moving on to that,
Yes,
what
sir.
exactly are the mechanics of the auction? If I were to bring stuff for somebody else, actually.
Right. You need to get auction cards. Get an auction card. Phil put out in the most recent newsletter or not newsletter, but his I'm sorry, Bob, I don't mean your newsletter, but the updates he sends out, the dispatch, right? Look in the dispatch, and it gives a phone number to call to get the auction card. Then you go in, you bring the stuff, you bring it in and get the lots, write up what it is, and prices and that sort of thing. I can't, right at the moment, I'm drawing a blank on where the repository is for the how-to on auctioning something.
So you do set a minimum price, is that right?
Yes.
You set a starting price.
You set a starting price, and I think it's now $5. I think they're trying to get away from $1 sort of things, and but
and when does it commence and when does it end?
Auction starts around, I think, 1 p.m. I'm sorry.
This is Frank. It starts the minute just soon after the business meeting's over. Business meeting lately has lasted 15 to 20 minutes. So usually around 12:30 it'll start.
Yeah, it depends if there's a clinic in the morning. It starts after the clinic and the business meeting.
And then how late in the day do you, I guess you need to stay for the entire day.
So
The-
lately, it's ended about 3:30, but in the past, sometimes it's run late. We haven't had a lot of items in the auction. The $5 minimum should really discourage the junk stuff that we've had in the past. So I think you can plan on 3:30, 4 at the absolute latest.
Yeah, but you can't get there when it starts at 12:30 if you want to put stuff out.
No, you
Because
got
people
to.
want to look at it while they're circulating before noon. So I would think you'd want to get stuff there by 10 o'clock or something so that you have time to actually get it out there on the table or find a place to put it. And then people have time to look at it and browse before the actual auction.
But you fill out the auction cards ahead of time and,
Yeah. Well, the auction card is what makes you a seller,
aha.
right? You're assigned a number. You're 27. And so as items are, you fill out a form for a lot of items you're going to make a lot to put up to auction. And then it'll say seller 27, lot item, lot, blah, amount of money, blah, all that sort of stuff. But the nuts and bolts of this, again,
Okay, I'll look at the dispatch. Yes, if the details.
look at the
and,
dispatch and reach out to reach out to
Gary.
Phil Edholm and who, Frank?
Gary Mendoza.
Harry Mendoza.
Gary.
Gary.
Yeah, G is in.
G is in
But the
Gary.
short
Okay.
answer is going to be do the auction card in advance and then get there at 10.
Okay, that
Right.
sounds
Right?
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, gentlemen. I've been very busy with family stuff here, taking care of my wife's dad and things and this and that. So I'm not fully up to speed. But okay, so there's auction, and thank you, Frank, for and Bob throwing in some of the tidbits there. All right, so we mentioned the auction. And this is over in Alameda at the Mastic Center, over off of was it Santa Clara Avenue?
This is
Anyway.
the same senior center we've used in the past, right?
Yes, yes, same bat time, same bat channel.
Look for a
Great-
gang of hooligans standing around the entrance.
Yes, yeah, hooligans and model railroaders. Okay, for the Great American Train Show, I suspect Phil will be looking for folks that want to help man a booth for the NMRA. I'll be trying to do that, mixing that with my time helping run the O-scale layout at the Alameda County Central there on the fairgrounds. Will be open to the public during the Great American Train Show. So we'll be going back and forth. All right, so we have the convention coming up in 2015 in San Luis Obispo. I'm going to be I think I'll be presenting remotely again because of my family responsibilities caring for my wife's dad. I can't really get far away. So I'm probably going to be doing an online Zoom type tutorial of some sort. But hopefully others of you indeed can get down there. Any other things announcements for stuff people want to make? Ken, isn't the Southern Pacific Railway and Historical Society got a meet coming up?
It's over. Yeah, it was October 16th to 20th.
Well, was it good?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. It was very interesting. I wound up on the 23rd floor of the tower of the for Harris, and you're looking down over the UP yard,
Mm.
and it's a study in an action. Every time you look, nothing ever moved.
The Union Pacific at work, huh?
And I've planned scheduled railroad or whatever it is.
Precision scheduled railroading.
Yes. Anyway, the convention was very good.
Good.
And I managed never to put a nickel in any slot machine or a dollar. And I didn't gamble one nickel.
Well, I think we model railroaders generally figure that if we're going to blow money, we're going to do it on trains rather than slot machines.
Yeah, I did blow a lot of money on books.
Ha ha. Yes. Yeah, I look up at my shelf here. Although my favorite book I have gotten of recent days, let me get it off the shelf here.
Ah,
Right? This is doing a great job of limiting my purchases of models because if it's not in here, I am trying not to buy it. The
what's
year 1987 is the year.
that's the year you do.
And my railroad is the Southern Pacific.
Hmm.
And the mix of freight cars and lines is the stuff that one would find in 1987 traveling between Washington and California. And
Yeah.
so that, and fortunately, some guys were out there with their VHS recorders recording Southern Pacific trains moving from through like the Cascades and such. So that gives me an idea of there's a smattering of BN odds and ends from various railroads around the United States, but a whole lot of Cotton Belt and Southern Pacific cars. The challenge is bulkhead flat cars. There's a lot of bulkhead flats to be seen in 1987, but I'm not seeing a lot of bulkhead flat cars models available in Southern Pacific, not counting the ones being produced today at $60 a piece. Yes, Ken?
SP didn't own any of the double cars. You know, the double-sided ones.
Double-sided cars.
You know, the ones
Yeah.
with the center beam. Center.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't own any of them. They relied on the leasers and other leasing companies for those.
Right.
Um, as to bulkhead flats, yeah, I'll have to look it up. I've got all of the SP freight car volumes.
Right. The thing I see when I look at the videos taken back in the late 1970s or pardon me, 1987, late 1980s, gondolas loaded with wood, flat cars loaded with wood, and bulkhead flat cars loaded with wood. Very, very few center beams. There were a few out, but not that many.
Speaking of which, I gotta put a plug in for Owl Mountain Models, and they have um, incredible wood loads, lumber loads,
Yep.
and there's a new version out that's split, so that you can model with a more modern version that's uses steel tape,
Right.
hold the lumber together, and has a split, so you have two loads side by side.
Hmm. I looked at the lumber loads that are available as models, and some of them are beautifully detailed and everything else, but the cost is just making me choke. I'm actually more interested in cutting blocks of wood and using wood burning to scribe lines to indicate separate boards.
By the time you're modeling, most of the lumber was wrapped.
The videos I've seen, late 1980s on the Cascade line, a fair amount wasn't just showing up in the videos. So, that's I'm trying to go with model what you see in this case in the old videos. But yes, agreed. Some are wrapped, but a fair number apparently aren't.
Hey,
So,
David,
yes, sir.
if you can go and get some coffee stirring sticks,
Mm-hmm.
they're $10 for a lifetime supply.
Yep.
Just glue them together.
Yep.
That's probably easier than trying to wood burn things.
I'm going to play with, thank you, play with coffee stirrers, blocks of wood, whatever. I've seen people who took just chunks of plywood with the plywood where it has good quality plywood, has a lot of layers and staining it and stuff. And that was, how shall I put it? I've given up, gentlemen, on super detailing. I'm not going to have it where you can get into 2 inches, get your nose 2 inches from my models and go, boy, I can count the rivets.
Would
I'm
stay
going to
with the
be
stirring sticks. I think that that's the best solution for you.
all right.
Go to
Stirring
your
sticks.
local Starbucks or something and steal a handful.
So I have to
Give it a
ask,
try.
Yes.
how many cars in the trains that you're seeing in the videos?
Oh, geez, 50, 60 trains, 70, 70,
Yeah.
50, 60,
So
70 cars.
so the human eye can't perceive the train as a unit and see the detail anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you're trying to show a train more than you're trying to model a car.
yes. Yeah. I just, the cars that are being sold today, $60 for a car, and you can get your nose up within 2 inches of the car, and it's beautifully detailed.
That'd be $3,000 worth of cars.
Yeah, I'm at the Great American Train Show when I'm not when I take a break from helping run the layout. I'm going to go over and I look for old Athearn blue box cars that I can fix up, make them comply with the recommended practices and standards, and weather them. And I'm happy because, as you say, I'll be able to sit there and go, there's the train, and I've got the right roads, the right look, but you know, the cut levers, there's not going to be cut levers. I just, for those that like that, great. Now I did like the locomotive sitting behind me in my picture here. I got a dress up kit for an Athearn blue box and put the stuff on it. But the cars are cars. And by the way, even though it's the late 1980s, there is no graffiti on my railroad. I just no. Okay, I've been yapping too much. Somebody else who's got railroading stuff to share or modeling stuff to share?
So David, we have a new MMR in our midst. Tony
Uh-oh.
Thompson is MMR, I think 772. And we gave him his plaque and everything the other day at Steve Van Meter's op session. And there are 2 other MMRs that are very close to happening, and I'll give you an update on that when it
All
happens.
right.
So, hey, Bob,
Yeah.
Gardine,
Yeah.
That's a real surprise.
we need to talk about AP stuff. I will catch up with you offline.
Love to do it.
And all right, Gardine, what's going on with that railroad behind you?
Yeah. So after much, so I rely on both this group and the Central California Coast ON30 groups to give me triangulated advice. And so the triangulated advice that I got was drive tortoise machines to stall. Don't just push them somewhere with the push button. And then I was thinking about trying to not spend a ton of money while I was doing it. So I decided to just reuse my NCE stall motor controller, Mark 8, because it works and have a push button unit. So I also figured, hey, I could put those on the front of the module behind plexiglass because this is the kind of small portable module that might be good to take to a show or a convention or something as that kids or other people could play with. So if I can turn it this way, so I put the electronic circuit breaker, the Mark 8 stall controller, and the button controller mounted vertically so I can put a piece of plexiglass here because when you activate the Mark 8, it shows the switch that you switched. And it's sort of cool. And so kids, I mean, there's a lot of virtue to Phil's push button on the surface of the layout going to a latching DP-DT relay. And if I was going to do another module and I didn't have the electronics already in my hands, that's what I would do the next time. But as it stands, so I have that laid in. So drop this down, hold on. Drop my standing desk so I can rotate this. Okay, so
That's
this
pretty
is
cool
the
being able to rotate it.
huh?
That's pretty cool being able to rotate it. I like that.
Yeah, it's even better because I'm about to glue in these little blocks, and these blocks are going to hold the DCC bus along the entire bottom of the module. I have thick end blocks so that I get more mounting force on the ends because there'll be tension there. And then I have smaller intermediate blocks, and I'm going to glue these along the bottom in a track, and then I'm going to feed a 16 gauge wire through those from end to end and pull it tight. And then everywhere where I want to solder one of these 19 track feeds, I'm going to basically take a pair of single edge or a X-Acto number 11, carefully cut away the insulation there, and then solder the wires on. I know that these little crimp-on connectors are in vogue, but I'm looking at this, I'm trying to do this on a budget with what I've got, and I got 19 time connectors times 2 wires, and that's not the only stuff I'm doing. And I'm thinking, I'm good with the soldering iron. And with this setup here, I put my soldering iron right here, and I just can work all the way down the layout soldering. So I never have to crawl underneath my layout and do work above my head.
Bob,
This
that's just wrong. That's just wrong, Bob. You're not, there are
I have to
rules.
drill one more hole in my 2 foot wide CCCON 30 end plate on both sides. And I can do the same thing with the 2 foot wide module. I just have the legs on a plate in between the modules and a 1/2 inch longer piece of track or rail that gaps the distance. Because in CCCO and 30 you have a 1 inch gap from each end, so you have a two inch piece of rail that you just drop in place with rail connectors. One side's insulated. So in my case, when I put the legs in between, it'll be 2.5 inches instead of 2 inches. So when I put these in, I'm just gonna the stand-up desk underneath this is phenomenal. When I had to do drilling, I rotated it flat upside down like this, and then lifted the table up under it for support. So I'm going to glue these in with this upside down. I'm going to actually draw the lines while it's like this and figure out where it's going to go. I'm going to rotate it flat. And then I'm a big believer in 5-minute epoxy. It is my tool of choice. I use it to excess. I used it to glue the foam road bed to the pink foam. I use it to glue the Pico track to the foam. And I have not immediate, but I have 5-minute gratification. And compared to everything else that's out there, I don't have time. I can hold track in alignment where I want it for 5 minutes, and it's exactly, I don't have to pin it, I can hold it. And just so my next step is to put these blocks in. I'm going to run the wires across. I'm going to solder my feeds in. They'll wire up the frogs to the tortoises. And then the next step after that will be to wire up the switch machines and the push buttons. I only use 5 turnouts on this. The MK8 supports 8 switches. So I'm going to put in an extra connector and wire harness that mounts from the middle and can traverse to either side, that has the push button contacts and the 2 wires to drive the switch motors, so that I could put those on an adjacent module on either side.
As you describe this process, I think about, if I was to build a railroad in the future that was based on modules, having a roll around cart that comes up and has a gripper that you can grab a module and then rotate it for all this kind of work, that would sure take away a lot of tears, because I spent many hours wrestling with that sort of thing in the past working on modules, but that is pretty slick what you're doing there.
Yeah, so in the case that I end up in an apartment, I put a 1 foot end, extension on each side, and then I'm all set with about 8 feet of 8 by 1 feet, and I got ideas for one corner module in the same width, but most of the apartments that I've been looking at have one long wall.
Mm.
And so there's an opportunity there for this to be above or behind a shelf with above a couch or something like that. So I've been
Yeah.
thinking through. That's one of the reasons I had something before, but it wouldn't have been portable, and I could see things changing. And so I wanted to
Mm.
make something that was going to be both useful at a show, maybe, and kids could see how this works. And it's actually pretty cool that you can use a handheld throttle, the DCC, the NEC throttle, to change the switches.
Yep.
Right. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Any questions for him, gentlemen? Knock knock jokes. Ken, just so you know, here's one of my references. And I was flipping through it here just because of your comment about wrapping. And in 1985, 1987, I can see trains with wrapped wood and trains with not wrapped wood. So it seems like you can go either way and be correct for the period, depending on which line, what mills you were near, so on and so forth. So I've got options there, but I still do want to have some loads not wrapped. And it sounds like a lifetime supply of wooden coffee stirrers are in my future. Mr. Rosenbauer, Rob, what you got? Any projects you're working on?
Oh, here and there, trying to make some progress on the layout, which is next door. Yeah, laying track, wiring things up, and hopefully running some trains in the future.
So you're not quite to the point of getting stuff going down the line?
Well, I've got some sections operational,
Okay.
testing it out as I go. But as everyone well knows, it takes time.
Yeah. But as long as it's fun time, you're doing it right. Oh, there goes Frank. Oh, I missed his wave. And
Yeah, someday maybe I'll figure out how to use the phone and do a little overview of what I'm trying to accomplish.
good, good. Yeah, the if you've got phone with data enabled, you can certainly get it onto Zoom. You've seen me use my iPad here to show pictures of what the particular things I've been cursing at.
Yeah, and we're a
So,
forgiving audience for you to learn how to do that because I've gone through all kinds of like how do I show my layout from sitting here? I actually have this on a swivel chair on a box, and I figured out something that it took me a couple of times. I can't do it when you hold your laptop, it doesn't work.
Well, I would somehow have to carry the phone next door and
Yeah, oh,
yeah,
that'll work. That'll
yeah,
work.
yeah. Well,
Have it on yourself while you're walking because you're watching. You don't have to display the other side of the camera until you're ready, right? You can just have it on viewing you, and you're just so it would be just like this view of you, except you're walking into the other room, and then when you want to show it, you hit your phone to work off the other side camera,
gotcha. Okay.
right?
well,
Does that
the
sound?
problem is this view just makes us jealous of his beautiful workbench. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Well, no, it inspires. It
Inspires.
inspires.
That's it.
Well,
Inspires.
the problem with the workbench is that some of you may have noted that the things on the workbench really haven't changed too much from week to
Yeah.
week.
Projects have to be left to mature, to ripen.
Yeah.
I think mine are getting to the point where they are getting a little overripe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I've
the
got this.
Colosseum in Rome.
Well, I've got this RSD 715, this Atlas O scale unit that I've got to uh, replace the worn gears and re-lube with better lubrication stuff to get it ready for our show over at the fairgrounds on the 14th and 15th December. So that's what I've got on my bench right now. But yeah, I'm looking forward just to dual coating all these trailers I have, big fleet, and then bringing them in to have them be samples for people to putter around, try chalk weathering on them. So that's what I'm going to be working on once I get this diesel ready for service for the show. Mr. Connery, how you doing over there in San Ramon? Any news?
Had to give my open my mic. No, I don't. But I would like to remind everybody that the annual LD-OPSIG meet will be January 31st and February 1st and 2nd up at the California State Railroad Museum. So if you're interested, you might want to put that in your calendar.
That's January
31st and February 1st and 2nd.
It's the week before Super Bowl.
Right, between the playoffs and Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'd like to get up there. I just have, again, the family stuff I have to work around, but maybe I can get up there for a day sort of thing. That'd be neat. It's operations is so much fun, and I've got so much to learn. My layout, once we're through the holidays, I want to actually get my layout, invite people over and start to operate on it. And I'm sure people are going to tell me I'm not doing it right, but I gotta get something started. I've got the cards for now, and then figure out how that works, and then go from there. Hello, Mr. Raley. He's connecting to audio here, and perhaps he's bringing some news from the Sierra Division. Anyway, Dave, thank you very much for the reminder about the LD SIG meet. That is going to be a good thing. Good morning, Mr. Raley. Welcome.
Good morning.
What news from the Sierra Division, sir?
Not a hell of a lot that I'm aware of. I'm inactive.
Relaxed. We use the term relaxed.
All right.
Yeah, we're just talking about some of the upcoming activities. We, of course, have down San Luis Obispo, we have the convention next year down there. We have some shows and such coming on. But what are you up your way? Do you have any railroading events we might be interested in?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all quiet. Let's see. Ken, what are you working on today?
What am I doing today?
Yeah, in terms of modeling.
Oh,
Okay, I had to narrow it down.
I'm pain at the moment. I still have a very serious back condition, and
yeah.
They don't want me to sit at my desk for hours. I'll do it when I like to. My workbench desk.
Right.
Projects. Well, speaking of the Shasta line, I am trying to gradually acquire the cars to build a Shasta daylight. I'm using Pacific. Oh no, not Union. Union Station kits.
Okay.
Because they have the correct window. They had different windows than the other daylight cars, and they were not corrugated. And so it's a rather interesting process to try and put it together. The advent of the Rapido 3/4 dome car, which is sort of like the centerpiece for the whole thing, and caused me to up my date range to 1955. They first went into service.
So it's 1955. Power at that point is diesel?
Passenger power was diesel.
Okay.
I modeled Port Costa, and at that time SP was still running all their old steam that still had allowable boiler time and mileage allowance
Mm-hmm.
was being used on the Western Division between Oakland and Sacramento.
Right.
It's flat.
Didn't you say that they were actually still using cab forwards to help trains up that grade from Port Costa up to the bridge?
A cab forward needed a helper to get up to the grade.
Okay.
And the helpers were 280s,
Right.
consolidations. And Port Costa was sort of like the depot for those helpers. And also for the local switching for the refineries and Crockett, the sugar and everything else.
Right.
But the they were they anything was a timed or required really punctuality
Mm-hmm.
And was not an extra or was an extra would be entrusted to the older cab forwards. At this time, they were not the older ones. There was just the 4290s was considered old at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were so it was freight was being run with steam.
Right.
Passenger was all diesel. And the thing is, going through Port Costa, there were 12 passenger trains in each direction.
Good Lord.
Because you had like 4 different trains going to Oregon and
Mm-hmm.
the Beaver, the Cascade and the Shasta. You had
Mm-hmm.
overland trains. You had city of San Francisco, each way once a day.
Right.
Plus, you had 4 trains that were just Oakland to Sacramento
Right.
that were often only 2 or 3 cars. Great for a model in it's only 8 feet or 11 feet long.
Right. Now the thing was the SB pushing passenger trains over the Altamont Pass heading to the San Joaquin Valley? No.
Even the San Joaquin train went around through Martinez.
All right. Because
The Altamont Pass line is part of the Western Division, but it was used, interesting enough, and I got this, they used it a lot for returning empties or
huh.
PFE cars. You'd see these trains of 50 to 60 PFE cars that are empty being returned to Watsonville and Santa Clara and all of the fruit and vegetable areas in the Coast Division. They'd use
Right.
Altamont Pass,
Huh.
those westbound.
Right.
When they were loaded, they wanted a fast, expedited train, so it would go through Oakland and around on the level, what we call the Cal Pacific line.
Right. Okay. So in a sense, for the reefer services, then it was almost you headed east and north out of along the Carquinez, but coming back, those reefers would
Yeah,
push them over.
every PFE used to concentrate all of their traffic in northern that came through the overland or whatever. The empties when they were returned, they were always prepped at Roseville. They were
Okay.
washed. It's still in 1955. They were still washing them, and then bunched into trains either to go down the San Joaquin Valley,
Mm-hmm.
come over to go to the produce producing areas on the Coast Division. And remember, at this time, Santa Clara County is a huge miles and miles of orchards.
Right. Right.
It's all been built over now, but
Yeah.
miles and miles of orchards. And you had a substantial number of cars come of lemons and oranges coming out of Santa Clara, as well as going down to Watsonville for vegetables. And then
Mm.
for vegetables and lettuce.
So Roseville, okay, so the empty cars are gathered and prepped in at Roseville, down through Sacramento, down through Stockton, Tracy, over the Altamont.
Well, the thing is, Altamont,
Hmm,
the Altamont Pass, it was windy, twisty, but it had just enough grade that you really didn't want to use it for loads westbound.
right.
But you could string a whole lot more empty cars behind another old cab forward
Hmm.
and make it over the pass and have them come down through Niles Canyon
Right.
as fast as they could through um, drop off what's necessary for Santa Clara, uh, um,
Hmm,
and then go down to Watsonville, drop off the Watsonville Salinas for the Salinas Valley distribution.
right.
And what you're doing there is distributing the empty cars. They're not loaded, they aren't iced. And
Right.
the interesting thing is the photos of the cars coming over Altamont, the hatches are up.
Right.
So
Right.
it's to say that, oh, it was against the SP policy, well, or PFE policy to run with the hatches up. Empties that were prepped at Roseville still needed drying out
Right.
before they iced. They wanted to get rid
Yeah.
of all the wood to dry out.
Okay, now, but that then begs the question, all right, so they get them down to Salinas, for example. They load them. Where were they icing? Where were they icing the cars to head them off to the
So the shepherd's requirement, whether it's pre-iced or whether it's iced after loaded.
were
Uh,
they were they icing right down in the Salinas area? Say again.
different types of produce have different icing requirements.
Right.
So, for instance, and pre-icing really is where you put ice in the bunker and you bunkers and you cool the car down empty,
Right.
and then you move it to the shipper um, to load, and that's for stuff that needed really cool, couldn't tolerate any heat coming from
Hmm.
the shed. You wanted it iced, you wanted it pre-cooled in the packing shed, and then you move it into the ice car already cooled.
Right.
I'm
As you
remember all this stuff because it didn't change that much into the 1970s when I worked for PFE.
right.
But then there are other things like I think lettuce at the time, where you take the car down completely empty, bunkers empty, load it, and then you move it to an icing station and unload the bunkers.
Right. Now, Roseville had a monstrous icing platform, as I understand it, but down the Salinas Valley, were there multiple places where you could ice cars then?
Okay, most of the icing done at Roosevelt is going to be eastbound traffic going on
Right.
Overland Road.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's going to be loads that need their final icing.
Right.
If this is, December or January, they might even have to put heaters in some of the cars
Hmm.
going over the Sierra.
Right.
But it's a the icing, as I say, I've done it is and remember that Roseville is everything coming up the Central Valley as well as stuff coming from the coast.
Right.
Also had the stuff. I think there was stuff even coming from up by Chico. A lot of fruit was grown up there
Mm.
during the year. North Sacramento Valley.
Right. Bear with me, gentlemen, as I pick on poor Ken here, because I'm just thinking about, when I see icing platforms on the model and trying to relate it to the way the real world actually worked. For example, Ken, okay, so if somebody ices a load coming out of Watsonville, how long would that load of ice last? Would it be it'd get to Roseville and then they'd have to re-ice the car?
Depends on how fast they got it to Roseville.
All right.
Um, at Roseville, all of the loads were checked, and if icing was necessary, they'd route the car to the icing.
Okay. So some guys are actually dancing along the top of the cars and looking down inside the hatches.
Yeah.
Okay. At need then. All right. And of course it depended on the weather, didn't it?
Do that so much. There, there are small what do I want to call it? Places where you put a thermometer probe inside and check the temperature.
Oh, okay.
And that based on the load tells you
Right.
it needs additional icing at Roseville. But most cars would also almost automatically be run through that. Why take a chance? Remember, PFE was in the business of protective service,
Right.
proactive protective.
Hmm.
And they were going to make sure at Roseville that every bunker that needed to be full was going to be filled.
Right. As I'm talking to you about this, I'm realizing how big of an operation and how many people were involved in just getting.
In the 50s, there were hundreds of people involved in this.
Yeah.
Plus the Roseville PFE shops that you've got two things going on. You've got the westbound cars returning empty.
Right.
There's almost no ice shipment in a PFE car coming westbound.
Right.
And then you've got the whole thing of maintenance, any repairs and anything else. You've got
Hmm.
another section of the shops that is literally building cars.
Yep.
And then you've got the eastbound, outbound stuff where people are making sure that there's enough ice in the bunker. And remember, California can be hot and the Sierras can be cold.
Right.
So the ice that may have been loaded in Salinas may not last all that well in going east, and
Hmm.
sure that it's topped off with how many blocks need to be tocked and chunked, and whether salt has to be added to make the right temperature.
Right. Now, does PFE, okay, I obviously, it's like, yes, PFE was in Roseville, but were those icing facilities down Salinas Valley and stuff, were they PFE properties employees?
I can't remember. A lot of places that they weren't. They were just temporary workers, and ice company and things like that to do icing.
Okay.
I'd have to check the book about Watsonville and Salinas. I think Watsonville was PFE.
All right.
But I think down the Salinas Valley they used contract ice services.
So Joe's Ice House, or it could have been.
Well, they were all union by the 1950s. They're union ice company.
All right. Union Ice. Ha!
Had a very relationship with PFE.
Everywhere we look in railroading history, there's just more and more and more to learn.
Yeah. Wow. This is an area where, of course, by the time I was working for PFE in the early 70s, ice cars were pretty much on their way out. And in fact, that was one of the last things I did before they laid me off was writing off the ice cars.
Ah, okay. Well, I escaped all of that because of this.
Okay. White SPFE?
Yes, sir. They had a few. They
No,
had some.
after my time. So
Yeah. No, there was just the white. The white absorbs less solar energy. So it's a
But it's not the corporate image.
now, mind you, that's SPFE, not PFE.
Those were reporting marks for mileage reporting
Right,
and ownership, car ownership, not operation of the protective service.
right.
It was still under PFE to some extent. Okay. After the 70s, I think they pretty much dismantled PFE.
Hmm. I
Um,
think that they split it up into UPFE and SPFE.
yeah, they split up the assets.
Right.
Cars, certain blocks of cars there were three types of cars. There were cars that were owned by UP, cars that were owned by SP, and they didn't use those SPFE, UPFE reporting marks until the late 60s.
Hmm.
I think even yeah, because I think we started to see that in the 70s. There were always the mechanicals that were done, SPFE, UPFE.
Right.
Um, that actually reflect who funded the acquisition of the cars.
Mm.
Were they funded through through the SP, or were they funded through the UP?
Okay.
At this point, PFE is no longer building cars, is only doing refrigerator car maintenance and operations. It's
The reason I have the white ones is I was rail fanning in the along from rail fanning in Sacramento, Roseville, up into the Sierras, and this was in the into the late 70s, early 80s, into even up to 1990, and I was seeing a fair number of white SPFE reefers, and
that could,
that's
that could be about when I left in 73, they were still orange.
still orange. Yep.
Okay. We did have SPFE and we had UPFE reporting marks on
Right.
mechanicals. We also had PFE reporting marks on our mechanicals too.
Hmm.
Three different reporting marks.
Right.
And
But at that time though, PFE handled all three cars ecumenically. It didn't matter. They were just making sure they were doing the job.
by the 80s, however, they've split up the service and literally shut down the icing. Of course, icing is no longer needed.
Right.
All you do is you get a tank truck and you drive along with a um, diesel pump to keep the motors running in the cars.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have one white PFE reefer, and I actually have it. I had a switch underneath, and I turn it on, and I had cut out the screening, molded in screening, put in screening, had a little tiny speaker. So if you got up close to the car, you could hear it going. I want to do more of those. So I have a string of them where you can just hear the little motors running.
I'm pretty deaf, so it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
But
thank you very much, Ken, for sharing that information. Oops, say that last again, please.
well, I said you and I could probably sit and talk about PFE forever.
Yeah.
I could undo more core dump. Um, these days, I have to go back and check things in Tony Thompson's PFE book.
Hmm.
I'm shall we say, forgetting a lot of this stuff, but in general, the patterns of icing and train movement of refrigerator cars. I'm pretty close to what was going on in Northern California. Now,
Yeah.
there's a division point, and Santa Margarita is the division point.
Now, Santa Margarita is
Santa Mar-
where?
Just before the Siesta Grade, coming south.
Cuesta Grade, down by San Luis Obispo.
Yeah. Anything south of that goes through LA.
Right.
Anything north of it goes through Roseville and Sacramento.
Ah, okay. Oh yeah, I've just found Santa Margarita on the map here. All right. So
Yeah.
they would actually take stuff all the way up through Salinas and stuff to get up to Roseville.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Now
yeah. Occasionally there might be a load that is destined for shipment to a location, say in Arizona or something like that. Now, obviously, that's going to go through LA,
right, right.
but the massive shipments of 100 cars at a time
Hmm.
go through Roseville, north of Santa Margarita, and
Right,
the Santa Maria Valley stuff, and all of Ventura, and all of that obviously goes through LA.
right. I've got to pester Len over there in Auburn. Len, have you been in Auburn for a long time? If he's still you're
Uh,
if Len's trying to talk, you're muted, Len. I wanted to see if you hello, Len, you still there? Nope. You may be away from keyboard.
I don't see him on the list of participants. Well, wait a minute, there is list of participants there.
Yep,
Len
yep,
is showing up. He's just got it muted in his
yeah. He may be away from the keyboard. Mr. Connery, anything you want to throw in on PFE and refrigerator cars?
Actually, a number of years ago, I did a study. I had access to records from the West Side Lumber Company on their shipment from mid 1926 till the end of 1929. So this dates back a bit, but it's surprising to me. It was a general policy of PFE that they wanted their cars shipped back empty, and they didn't want in any way put something in it that would contaminate them, since those cars would be used for food. But in all those cars that were shipped out of Tuolumne City in that 3.5 year period, there were six incidences where they had PFE reefers, and they filled them with box shook, shipped them to Southern California. And I thought that was kind of brilliant, that they'd use the car, it would go to the packing plant full of shook, they'd pull out the shook and load it up and send it on its way.
And it was PFE very unhappy?
Well, I don't think so. Not that I know of. Of course, there's no way to tell.
Right.
But they happened over a period of years, and so it would be very rare. But every once in a while, a PFE reefer headed towards packing plants with shook in it would be appropriate.
Ah,
yeah. Shook was the kind of loading that you could do in a PFE car.
They were going to go right back in. The shook only loaded with produce.
Yeah.
oh, it was the packing material for the fruit.
Right, yeah.
Of course.
Shook was the term they used for crates that had not been built up. They were four sides and two ends
Right.
were packaged together, and then they would be built up. So they could carry about 6 carloads of shook in one car.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you sent, but the packer was the one who was going to put the crates together.
Right.
Ah, okay. Shook's delivered to the packing house. They assemble them, load them, put them in the car.
Yeah. Then assemble them and load them and put them in the car. PFE's policy was almost really, they penalized any other railroad by withholding part of their mileage if they didn't return the cars empty.
Right.
In other words, you didn't dare load a PFE car in Tennessee or Ohio or something.
Yep.
Unless you had absolute specific permission from,
Mhm.
I guess, from 116 New Montgomery,
Hmm.
from headquarters.
Now, Tuolumne, I'm looking at Tuolumne, California on the map. Was the West Side Railroad, the mills making the shook, were they in the area of Tuolumne, Dave?
Yeah, they were in Tuolumne City. There was there was also shook produced by the Standard Lumber Company that was located at Standard, which is kind of halfway between Sonora and Tuolumne City. So the two lumber companies both were heavily invested in the production of box shook.
Oh, I'm actually looking at the Standard here. That it still has a massive Sierra Pacific Industries facility.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big mill, even today.
It is. Interesting.
Now, there's no sign of a railroad here anymore, of course.
No, there's still a railroad there. It's still served by the Sierra.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Interesting
Oh,
enough.
okay, I found the tracks.
What's missing is the narrow gauge.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Okay, the railroad comes. There it is. Yeah, now that I talked to you about it, my wife and I went to Columbia and we were over in Sonora and stuff, and I saw the tracks there. I just didn't realize that they served that huge mill up here in Tuolumne.
Actually a couple mills there. Today there's the one at Standard, and then there's another mill at Chinese. So they serve both of those.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
My son had foster grandparents who lived in Twain Harte. They retired to Twain Harte.
All right.
I was up there a lot of the time. He'd spend summers with it up in Twain Harte. And we'd go over to Tuolumne, which is just, a couple miles away.
That same trip, my wife and I went over to Railtown, and the week before they had stopped. It was in the fall, and the week before they'd stopped running their passenger train, so I didn't get to ride on the Sierra, but got a great tour of the facility. A gentleman, one of the staff, I was like the only person around. All the other tourists were long gone, I guess. So he took me around and gave me a really good tour of the facility there at the Sierra in Jamestown. That was a good trip.
Sierra's a wonderful railroad to model.
Yeah.
Oh, there've been tons of modelers who've done the Sierra.
Yes. Yep. Gentlemen, have we chewed the fat adequately? Is it properly digestible now?
Certainly, of time-wise,
Yeah. All right. Well, I think in this instance, unless somebody has something else, we'll adjourn till our next gathering. But Ken, thanks again for sharing so much about PFE. I'll be when I get serious on getting these white PFE reefers going, I'll have to do more homework to make sure I'm doing them right for the period.
And thank you, David, for hosting this morning. Very nice.
You are very welcome. I'm just hoping I'm providing a decent job of hosting, getting everybody a chance to put in their 5 cents and tell some jokes and all that good stuff.
One comment to you.
Yes, sir.
70s, PFE started painting the roof silver.
Right.
Or actually, I think they were left as just
bare galvanized
metal.
Right.
And again, that was to the business of trying to reflect the heat.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas ice cars had always been painted either freight car red or black.
Yep.
Why they thought black, I have no idea, because it just absorbs heat, but
maybe black paint was cheap. Of course, could it have been a tar coating?
It wasn't black paint. It was what's called what do they call it? It's something car sealant. It's like a tar.
That would make sense. They're just trying to protect the wooden roof. Now, although that points out to me, I'm going to have to do my homework again on the white cars that I'm modeling to see whether the roofs were silver or just white?
They're by your term, probably mixed.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys. A pleasure and fun. And Len, if you hear us, you have a good Saturday there up in the hill, and keep an eye on the trains for us. All right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this thing up here. Let's see. Take care.